Welcome to our deep dive into creative goal setting for the year ahead. You shared an article from Irish Art Mart about reflecting on your artistic journey.
Yeah.
And I have to say, even if you're not like a painter or a sculptor, these ideas, they really resonate with anyone who's just trying to be more creative,
Yeah,
you know?
it's true. The article frames it as like thinking about your creative path as a map. So we start by like surveying the terrain,
Okay.
looking back at what we've accomplished,
Hmm,
where we've stumbled,
I like that.
and what landmarks we've passed.
Yeah, I like that analogy. It's like taking stock of our creative inventory.
Right.
Before we plan the next expedition, the article has some interesting questions to get us started. It asks about our proudest achievements, the techniques we've mastered, even how we've engaged with the art community.
Yeah, those are more than just prompts. They're tools for like honest self-assessment. And this is something that resonates across any field.
Hmm.
Whether you're an artist, a writer, an entrepreneur, understanding your past successes and
All
failures
right.
is crucial for plotting your next move.
Yeah. It reminds me of when I first started podcasting, I was so focused on getting episodes out there. I didn't stop to analyze what was working and what wasn't.
Yeah.
Once I started keeping a journal of my process, I was able to identify like the episodes that really resonated with listeners and why.
Exactly. That kind of reflection lays the groundwork for growth. It helps you identify patterns, pinpoint areas for improvement, and ultimately make more informed decisions about your creative direction.
The article then dives into goal setting, specifically the importance of setting SMART goals. And while SMART goals might seem like a familiar concept, I think it's worth revisiting because the article highlights some really interesting nuances.
Yeah, what's often missed about SMART goals is that they're not just about achieving a specific outcome, they're about designing a system for success. The M for measurables, for example, encourages you to break down those big, audacious goals into smaller, trackable steps.
Right, it's like building a staircase instead of trying to leap to the top of the mountain in one go.
Yeah.
The article suggests setting goals like mastering a particular technique or applying to a certain number of exhibitions.
Right. And those goals, while tailored to artists, can be easily adapted to other fields. Think about it. You mentioned wanting to write more consistently this year. Instead of saying, I want to write a novel, a SMART goal might be, I will write for 30 minutes every morning before work 5 days a week.
That's a great example. And it highlights the importance of the T in SMART time bound. By setting a specific time frame, you're creating a sense of urgency and accountability. I've found that setting deadlines, even for personal projects, helps me stay motivated and avoid procrastination.
Absolutely. It's about building those positive habits and making consistent progress, even if it's just a small step each day. But the article doesn't stop at planning and execution. It also emphasizes the importance of exploration and stepping outside our comfort zones.
And this is where things get really exciting. The article suggests trying new mediums like digital art, mixed media, even sculpture. I have to admit, I get a little giddy just thinking about all the possibilities.
It's interesting about the suggestion is that it's not just about acquiring new skills, it's about expanding your creative palette. Digital art, for example, offers a level of control and experimentation that traditional mediums might not, which can be liberating for some artists.
I can see that. Even if you're primarily a painter, experimenting with digital tools could open up entirely new ways of expressing yourself. It's like learning a new language. It allows you to see the world from a different perspective.
Precisely. And sometimes those unexpected detours lead to the most groundbreaking discoveries. Think about Picasso's foray into Cubism. It wasn't a planned move. It was a result of his relentless experimentation and willingness to break with tradition.
The article also talks about increasing exhibition opportunities. Now, this might seem specific to the art world, but I think the underlying principle of visibility applies to any field.
Absolutely. Whether you're an artist showcasing your work, an entrepreneur pitching your ideas, or a writer seeking publication, getting your name and your work out there is crucial for growth.
The article suggests applying to juried shows, collaborating with other artists for group exhibitions, and even utilizing online platforms for virtual exhibitions.
What's important to note here is that exhibition opportunities aren't just about exposure, they're about strategic positioning. Think of it as a way to build credibility, connect with potential collaborators or clients, and establish yourself within your field.
That brings us to the ever-evolving landscape of the online world. The article emphasizes the importance of building a strong online presence.
It's no longer optional, it's essential. The art market, like many industries, has increasingly shifted online. Having a professional website, engaging on social media, and utilizing platforms like Irish Art Mart are no longer just marketing tactics. They're integral parts of the creative process itself.
It's like building your own digital gallery accessible to a global audience 24/7. And it's not just about showcasing finished work, it's about sharing your process, connecting with other artists, and even finding inspiration.
Exactly. It's about leveraging those digital tools to amplify your voice, expand your reach, and ultimately create more opportunities for connection and collaboration. But as we embrace the digital realm, it's also important to remember the value of real-world interactions.
That's where networking and professional development come in. The article recommends attending art events, finding a mentor, and actively engaging with the art community.
While online platforms offer incredible opportunities for connection, there's still something invaluable about those face-to-face interactions. It's about building relationships, learning from others, and finding inspiration in the shared experiences of your peers.
The article specifically mentions finding a mentor. That can be a game changer, but it can also be a bit daunting. How would you advise someone to go about finding a mentor in their field?
It starts with identifying individuals whose work you admire, whose careers you want to emulate. Reach out to them, express your admiration, and ask for a brief informational interview. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to share their insights and advice.
That's a great tip. It's about being proactive, putting yourself out there and building those relationships. And who knows, that informational interview could lead to a mentorship, a collaboration, or even just a valuable connection.
And that's the beauty of networking. You never know where those connections will lead. But as we plan for the year ahead with all these goals and aspirations, it's also important to remember one crucial element: flexibility.
Because lifelike art rarely follows a straight line.
Exactly. The article wisely reminds us that unexpected opportunities might arise, setbacks are bound to happen, and the creative process itself is often unpredictable. It's about being adaptable, willing to adjust our course, and not getting discouraged when things don't go exactly as planned.
That's a great point. We can set the most detailed goals, map out our creative journey meticulously. But we also need to be open to the possibility of detours, unexpected discoveries, and even those happy accidents that sometimes lead to the most brilliant breakthroughs.
It's about holding our plans lightly, being open to serendipity, and remembering that the journey itself is just as valuable as the destination. And speaking of journeys, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We've reflected on the past, explored goal-setting strategies, and delved into the importance of exploration, visibility, and connection.
But we're not done yet. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll be delving into the art of staying motivated, drawing inspiration from the journeys of renowned artists who've mastered the delicate dance between planning and serendipity.
So stay tuned, because we're about to get even more insightful and inspiring.
Welcome back to our deep dive into your artistic journey. Before we move on, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about finding joy in the creative process.
Yeah, the article briefly mentioned it, but I think it's so important, especially when we're talking about setting goals and making plans.
Yeah.
It's easy to get so caught up in the how-to that we forget about the why.
Exactly. And that's where burnout can creep in.
Right.
We lose sight of the passion that fueled us in the first place. The article uses the term joy, but I think it's broader than that. It's about connecting with that intrinsic motivation, that sense of purpose that makes the work feel meaningful.
I've definitely experienced that. There are times when podcasting feels like a chore, like just another item on my to-do list.
Yeah.
But then I'll get an email from a listener saying how much they enjoyed an episode, how it helped them see things differently, and that spark comes back.
That's a perfect example. It's those moments of connection, of realizing that your work has made a positive impact that can reignite that passion and remind you why you do what you do.
Yeah.
So as we delve into the stories of artists who've navigated these creative journeys, I want you to keep that idea of intrinsic motivation in mind.
Okay. I'm ready for some inspiration. Who are we looking at today?
Let's start with someone who embodies both relentless exploration and a deep connection to their craft, Frida Kahlo.
Oh, yeah.
She faced immense physical pain and emotional turmoil throughout her life, yet she channeled those experiences into her art. Her self-portraits are raw, powerful, and deeply personal.
Her work is so captivating. It draws you in with its honesty and vulnerability. It's almost like you're getting a glimpse into her soul.
And that rawness, that willingness to expose her inner world is what makes her art so compelling. It resonates with people because it speaks to the universal human experience of pain resilience and the search for meaning.
I've read that she didn't initially intend to become a painter. It was only after a debilitating accident that she turned to art as a way to cope with her physical and emotional pain.
That's right. And that's a powerful reminder that sometimes our greatest creative breakthroughs emerge from adversity.
Wow.
It's often in those moments of challenge when we're forced to confront our limitations that we tap into a deeper well of creativity.
So it's not just about seeking out new experiences. It's also about reframing our challenges as opportunities for growth.
Exactly.
Frida Kahlo's story is a testament to the transformative power of art, not just as a form of expression, but as a means of healing and self-discovery.
Absolutely. And speaking of transformative journeys, let's shift gears and look at someone who completely disrupted the art world. Banksy.
Oh, okay.
He's a master of anonymity, using street art to challenge societal norms and spark conversations about important issues.
Banksy's work is so clever and thought-provoking. It's like he's holding up a mirror to society, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths. And the fact that he's managed to remain anonymous all these years just adds to the intrigue.
That anonymity is part of his genius.
Right.
It allows the art to speak for itself without the distraction of a persona or a backstory. And it also allows him to operate outside the traditional art world, bypassing the gatekeepers and taking his message directly to the streets.
I find it fascinating how he's managed to maintain that mystique in the age of social media. He uses platforms like Instagram to share his work, but he never reveals his identity. It's brilliant.
It's a brilliant example of adapting to the times. He understands the power of digital platforms for reaching a wider audience.
Right.
But he also understands the power of mystery. And that's a valuable lesson for any artist or creative entrepreneur. It's not just about what you create, it's about how you present yourself and your work to the world.
So we've got Frida Kahlo, who transformed her personal pain into powerful art, and Banksy, who's using anonymity and street art to challenge the status quo. These are some pretty inspiring figures.
Yeah.
But how can we as individuals apply these principles to our own lives, even if we're not striving for global art stardom?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about taking those core principles of resilience, exploration, and authenticity and applying them to our own unique contexts. It's about finding those small ways to push ourselves creatively, to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth, and to stay true to our own unique voices.
Can you give us some concrete examples? How can we bring these principles down to earth and make them actionable?
Absolutely. Let's say you're a writer who's always wanted to try poetry but feels intimidated by the form. Instead of focusing on writing a perfect sonnet, try writing a haiku each day. It's a small, manageable form that can help you explore new ways of using language and imagery.
I love that idea. It's about breaking down those intimidating goals into smaller, more approachable steps. Or what about someone who works in a corporate environment and feels like their creative spirit has been stifled?
That's a common feeling. But even in a corporate setting, there are opportunities for creativity. It could be as simple as suggesting a new approach to a problem, volunteering to design a presentation, or even just bringing a more playful attitude to your daily interactions.
It's about finding those little pockets of creative expression, even in the most unexpected places. And it's about remembering that creativity isn't just about producing art. It's a way of thinking, a way of approaching the world with curiosity and a willingness to experiment.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that creative mindset regardless of your profession or your artistic aspirations. And that brings us back to the importance of staying motivated.
Yeah.
We've talked about intrinsic motivation, but what are some practical strategies for keeping that creative fire burning when we're feeling burnt out or discouraged?
That's a great question. We've all been there, those moments when we hit a wall, lose momentum, and start questioning why we're even bothering.
One of the most effective strategies I've found is to surround yourself with inspiration. It could be books, podcasts, music, art, nature, anything that sparks your imagination and reminds you why you love what you do.
I have a Pinterest board filled with images, quotes, and articles that inspire me. Whenever I'm feeling stuck, I scroll through it, and it's like an instant creativity boost.
That's a great idea. It's like creating your own personal museum of inspiration. And don't underestimate the power of connecting with other creatives. Join a writing group, attend an art opening, or simply have coffee with a friend who shares your passions.
That's so important. Having a supportive community can make all the difference. It's a place where you can share ideas, seek feedback, offer encouragement, and just generally feel like you're not alone on this creative journey.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, moments of brilliance and moments of frustration.
Right.
The key is to embrace the process, celebrate those small wins, and not be afraid to stumble along the way. The most important thing is to keep that creative spark alive and to never stop learning and growing.
That's a beautiful sentiment. And it perfectly sets us up for the final section of the article, which is all about taking these insights and turning them into actionable steps for the year ahead.
We've explored the landscape, gathered inspiration from those who've gone before us, and now it's time to chart our own course.
I'm excited to dive into the practicalities of creating a plan that will help us make this year our most creative and fulfilling yet. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on quite a journey, exploring the ins and outs of artistic reflection, goal setting, and creative exploration. And now it's time to shift gears and get practical.
Well, it's time to take all that we've talked about and put it into action.
I'm excited to dive into the nitty-gritty of creating a plan that will help us make this year our most creative and fulfilling yet. So where do we begin?
Well, we've already touched on some key strategies: setting SMART goals, embracing exploration, and nurturing our intrinsic motivation. Now let's break those strategies down into actionable steps.
Okay, let's start with SMART goals. The article provided some great examples for artists, like mastering a particular technique or applying to a certain number of exhibitions. But how can we translate that framework to other areas of our lives?
It all starts with identifying your specific goals and aspirations. What do you want to achieve this year? What are those creative dreams you've been putting off?
Let's say someone wants to write more consistently, like you mentioned earlier. How would they turn that desire into a SMART goal?
Instead of saying, I want to write more, they could set a SMART goal, like I will write for 30 minutes every morning before work 5 days a week. Notice how that goal is specific. It outlines exactly what they'll do and when. It's measurable. They can track their progress by the number of days they write. It's achievable. It's a realistic amount of time to dedicate each day. It's relevant. It aligns with their desire to write more consistently. And it's time-bound. They've committed to writing 5 days a week.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of breaking down those big, overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Exactly. It's like building a staircase to reach the top of a mountain. Each step gets you closer to your goal, and the act of taking those steps, even if they're small, creates momentum and keeps you moving forward.
So we've got our SMART goals in place. Now, how do we stay motivated and avoid those inevitable moments of self-doubt and procrastination?
One strategy I find helpful is to create a visual representation of your goals. It could be a vision board, a mind map, or even just a list of your goals written in a beautiful journal. The act of creating this visual reminder helps you connect with your goals on an emotional level and reinforces your commitment to achieving them.
I love that idea. It's about making those goals tangible, something you can see and interact with on a daily basis. And speaking of daily practices, the article also emphasized the importance of creating rituals and routines that support your creative journey.
Yes, rituals and routines are powerful tools for cultivating creativity.
Right.
They help you establish a sense of structure and consistency, which can be especially helpful if you're working on your own or struggling with self-discipline.
Can you give us some examples of creative rituals?
Absolutely. It could be as simple as starting each day with a meditation practice, listening to inspiring music while you work, or taking a walk in nature to clear your head and spark new ideas. The key is to find what works for you and make it a non-negotiable part of your day.
I've found that having a dedicated workspace, even if it's just a corner of my desk, helps me get into the creative flow.
Yeah.
It's like signaling to my brain that it's time to focus and create.
That's a great example. It's about creating an environment that supports your creative process, both physically and mentally. And remember, rituals and routines are not about being rigid. They're about creating a framework that allows you to be more flexible and spontaneous within that structure.
That makes sense. It's like having a safety net that allows you to take more risks creatively.
Exactly. And speaking of risks, let's talk about exploration. The article encouraged us to try new mediums, step outside our comfort zones, and embrace the unexpected. But how do we actually do that in a way that feels exciting rather than terrifying?
That's a great question. I think for many people, the fear of failure can be paralyzing when it comes to trying new things.
That's where it's crucial to shift our perspective on failure. Instead of seeing it as a setback, we can reframe it as a learning opportunity. Remember, every successful artist, entrepreneur, or creative individual has faced countless failures along the way. It's part of the process.
It's like that famous quote from Thomas Edison, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work."
Exactly. It's about embracing the iterative process of experimentation, knowing that not everything you try will be a success, but each attempt brings you closer to your goal.
So how do we encourage ourselves to take those creative leaps even when fear is whispering doubts in our ear?
One strategy is to start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire creative process overnight. Instead, pick one small thing you've always wanted to try and make it a priority.
For example, if you've always wanted to learn to paint, but feel intimidated by the idea of starting a large canvas, you can start with a small sketchbook and some watercolors.
Exactly. It's about breaking down those intimidating goals into bite-sized pieces and giving yourself permission to experiment without judgment. And as you start exploring, pay attention to what sparks your interest, what brings you joy, what makes you feel truly alive. Those are the clues that will guide you toward your passions and help you uncover hidden talents and interests.
That's such a great point. Exploration isn't just about checking things off a list. It's about discovering what truly lights us up.
And as you embark on these explorations, remember that you don't have to do it alone. One of the most valuable pieces of advice the article offered was the importance of community.
Yes, we've touched on this throughout our conversation, but it's worth reiterating. Having a supportive network of like-minded individuals can make all the difference when you're navigating the ups and downs of the creative journey.
It's about finding your tribe, those people who understand your passions, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to grow. Whether it's an online forum, a local group, or simply a close circle of friends, having that sense of community can provide a sense of belonging, accountability, and inspiration.
It's like having your own personal cheerleading squad, cheering you on every step of the way. And it's not just about receiving support, it's about offering support to others. Sharing your knowledge, your experiences, and your encouragement can be just as rewarding as receiving it.
Absolutely. It's about creating a reciprocal relationship where everyone benefits from the shared energy and inspiration. So as you embark on this creative journey, remember to reach out, connect, and build those relationships that will nourish your soul and fuel your creative fire.
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've covered so much ground, from reflecting on the past year to setting smart goals, embracing exploration, cultivating resilience, and nurturing community.
And we've learned from the journeys of artists like Frida Kahlo and Banksy, reminding us that creativity is not just about producing art. It's a way of thinking, a way of approaching the world with curiosity, courage, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
So to wrap things up, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today?
I would say this: remember that creativity is not a destination, it's a journey. It's a continuous process of exploration, experimentation, and growth. Embrace the ups and downs, celebrate the small wins, and never stop learning and evolving.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you to continue your own creative journeys. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into creative goal setting.